the Mount Vernon Board of Education to order. Please stand for the pledge. Trustee Patterson, Trustee Miller, Trustee Williams, Trustee McOwen, Trustee Ming, Trustee Jaros, Trustee Saunders, Trustee Torres,
Present.
Trustee White.
Present.
Quorum is present.
We will now hear from our superintendent.
Good evening. As you know, we are required to publicly present our school status report as per the New York State Education Department. And tonight, Dr. Bennett Conroy and Dr. Gorman will be presenting the data on the status of our schools and the upcoming celebration to honor their progress. So I'd like to ask the board if they would join the audience so that they may be able to review the screen this evening. And following that, we have a presentation from Mount Vernon High School, and then we will conclude with the budget presentation. So we will have these presentations back to back, and then resume being on the dais. Okay. Dr. VC.
Hey, Michael, how are you? Good, thank you. Good.
Trustees. I'm just going to do a mic check to make sure everybody can hear me. Can you hear me in the back? Board of Trustees, can you hear me now? Okay. Board of Trustees, Superintendent of Schools, members of the public, good evening.
Good evening.
The Mount Vernon City School District has been on a journey of increasing student achievement. The goal of the current superintendent and his cabinet is to restore the school district to its stage of exemplary educational experiences for students and their families. This evening, I want to thank each and every one of you who came out to recognize the hard work of our administrators, our teachers, our students and parents, and also our board members. Before I begin this presentation, I would like to preface it by saying that we are not where we want to be as yet, but we are rising. We are also going to celebrate the growth and the progress of where we are going. And I want you to understand tonight, just take a few minutes and settle in the moment of the progress and the growth we have made. Don't think about anything else. Now, I chose this quote because this appeals to me because of what we're going to talk about tonight. And this came from Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran is a poet, he's a philosopher, he's a painter, and he's an artist. And it says, men make history, and not the other way around. In periods when there is no leadership, society stands still. Progress occurs when courageous, skillful leaders seize the opportunity to change things for the better. Okay. Now, because we're already starting on a journey, and the journey begins with every student succeeds at. Before that, we had NCLB with No Child Left Behind. We have ESEA with Needs, Education, Elementary and Secondary School Act. And now we have this, ESSA. Now, what is ESSA? ESSA is definitely an accountability system for us. And there are 4 parts to the ESSA, and they are foster equity, expand measures for school support, and it requires school-level improvement plans for low-performing schools. That's what ESSA is. ESSA is also equity. It means that no child is going to be left behind. And it also means that each and every one of our students will get equal resources. So let's look at the first one. It says educators. Now, the district commits to professional development for all staff. That's what the educators will do. And underneath that, we have things like balanced literacy and guided practice. We have, it says, fiscal transparency. It means that people in school will know how the money is spent. And the third one is all students, is that social and emotional support for all students and rigorous and high college courses for kids for college and career readiness. Now, the former designations were as follows. We had before under ESEA, reward school, good standing, focus and district school, priority school, and receivership. Now, under the new ESSA, we have good standing, comprehensive support and improvement. Now, comprehensive support and improvement, starts CSI, is another word for priority. Targeted support and improvement is another word for TSI. Is another word for focus, just TSI. And target district is just as focus district. GS PTD means good standing, potential target district in 2019-20. And GSPTSI means good standing, potential TSI school in 2019-2020. The last two that I spoke about, it means that a district could be in good standing, or a school couldn't be in standing, but yet still you have some schools who are potentially will be on the target list. So those are two new additional designations that we have to make sure that we take care of. Now the new district designations, so the district have designations as well, is the first one, the district has a school identified as CSI, it's called CSIS. A district has a school identified as CSI, and districts, all students met CSI criteria. We have CSID, means district, all students subgroup met CSI criteria. TSIS, district has a school identified as TSI, which we are. And then TSIDS is a district has a school identified as TSI, and district subgroup met TSI criteria. And the last one is TSID, means district subgroup met TSI criteria. Now, Mount Vernon school status, and I know everybody's waiting for this, because I always like to see this. I play with it myself. Okay? So, in 2016-17, we had 10 schools on the list. 17-18, we have 6 schools on the list. And in 2018-19, we have 1 school on the list, which means we have 14 schools in good standing. And I am going to pause to say that it has to be some very good work by all our stakeholders, because if we leave from 6 schools that was on the list and went to 14 that's off the list, it takes some great work. So I applaud you all, from the Board of Ed, from the Board of Trustees who voted on resolutions, to the Board of Education, the administrators, to the principals, to the teachers, and I know all of you is in the house tonight, and also to our students and our parents. So congratulations. Now, this is the tough part. Because the multiple measures of success is that we have at least 6 of them. And of course, these are what we are going to be held accountable moving forward, not just ELA and math and graduation rate. So let's take a look at them. The first one is student academic achievement, which we already know. And student growth. That's a new one, because they never always measure student growth. And I think that is why we have done so well, because when you look at the other slides that are coming up, you will see the growth that some schools have made in double digits. We have academic progress. It's for all schools, and it measures student progress on the state assessment, ELA and math. Graduation rate, we always have that. English language proficiency, we always have that one. Chronic absenteeism, no. This is a new one. And this is where attendance, ladies and gentlemen, is key. And the last one is college, career, and civic residence. Now, this is also a new one. And this is where it comes in, where that we have to encourage our kids to read and read and read. I remember in my young days, growing up as a child, I used to have to take a class in civics. I don't know if anybody's old enough me would remember that. And it's really by reading and knowing what's in your country and other countries, taking your history class and your social studies classes, you know about civic readiness. So what's going to happen, I know the district is moving in a new direction, where that they're getting all the literature to put in all the classrooms so that kids can continue to read about any and everything. Now, what interventions are required of the district? And that is, you have to have a plan. And our district plan is found on the website. And this is done by a group of administrators and teachers and parents who come together and write the plan. If you go under school improvement, you will see all the plans for all the schools listed there. So when you go home, when you're the parents, just click onto school improvement and you will see all the plans listed there for your schools. Now, at TSI school, we have one school, a TSI school. And there's going to be two ways which a school is identified as a TSI school. And that is, a school can be identified as TSI if one or more of its student subgroup performs at level 1 and a combination of the new indicators, or if a school was in good standing and it failed for 2 years. Now, the one that we have in TSI is because of our subgroups, and we have 2 subgroups who definitely let us be in TSI. But again, you hear from from Vernon High School, Mr. Gonzalez. He's going to give you a plan on how we're going to all fix that. But I must say, though, in Mount Vernon High School, there was a lot of growth in different areas. I have to say that. Now, a required TSI schools interventions, TSI schools will be required to develop a SEP plan. And I know that a lot of schools I have provided the money for you to put your SEP plans together and send them to me, that I could send it to the state in June. That's why the SEP plan is so important. And it's a comprehensive plan that tells you what you're going to do every year. And it also, and this is the annual improvement plan, and also it consists of survey. You survey your parents, your staff, and students annually, and then you put your plan together. Again, all these plans are on the website. So please click on it, on the school improvement, and you will see the plan that is written for your school. Now, how does school improvement help to improve our schools? Number one, we have a whole system approach. And the first one is the Office of School Improvement convened a school leaders meeting during 2016-17 to discuss a strategic plan. I can remember many years ago that the superintendent appointed me to this position, and he said, you have a task on your hand, and you have to work with the principals to get those schools off the list. And I said, fine, I'll take the challenge. Well, I went to Albany, and when I sat down there, I said, well, where are everybody from Mount Vernon? Every other district have their people there, and I was just by myself. So I said, nope, this is not going to happen. I came back, and I have all my teams there at the next meeting. And I have to tell you, these teams were very good. They worked from 8 until 5, most of them. And I wasn't there one day, and the state called me and said, can you imagine you have 2 Mount Vernon schools sitting down, that's after 6, working on their plans. So these are the things that we do in order to ensure that our kids do well. And the second one is we have a process that we call the TSST, which is a diagnostical tool for school district survey. And again, effectiveness, sorry. And again, every school, we have our OEEs that goes in. We started with our OEEs from our cabinet. It goes in and we spend a day and we focus on leadership, we focus on curriculum, and we focus on how the teacher is teaching. And after that, we give them valuable feedback. So now, this year, I started a new process. It's where we still have the TSST, but I have outside OEEs, which are called outside educational experts, who comes in and give the feedback. And I'm telling you, we are doing much better than where we were. because, as you know, it's harder to stay off the list than to stay off the list than to be on. The next one is our principal professional learning community. And we do have outside consultants that comes in, work with the schools, and talk about balanced literacy, guided practice, things that they need to help them to supplement what they need in their school with their teachers. And they work with the teachers in small groups as well. The Office of School Improvement's current strategies are as follows. Academic support. And you can see from academic support, we have the Academic Power Hour, which all of you know. And most of you is using it the right way and doing well. We have the summer camp, you have the literacy enrichment, you have the MBK summer program for brown and black boys. All of those programs we have that runs through the year. We also have the funding, the grant funding. And you can see it in your own PowerPoint. Last year, we made $17.87 million in grants. And this year, we made $16.25 million in grants. And we are still counting. So the professional development will be the next one. And we offer professional development to our school leaders, whether they want to go to conferences, whether they want to have their own professional development in their schools. We provide the money from our office to make it happen. We also analyze data and do assessment surveys. And we have data consultants in our district. And we also have, each school have their own data team that works on their data and dig deep down in their data to ensure that the kids get the right interventions. And we have partnerships. Now, I need to talk about two of our partnerships right there. And that is the one we have with Lehman College, where we have students from STEAM High School. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Neng, Board of Trustee, and also to Ms. Bradley and her team for making this happen, because without them, it would never happen, where our kids are going down to Lehman and are taking college courses. We have one with St. Rose College, where our principal is part of our principal prepared program, in which the grant pays for them for 2 years for them to be certified. And I saw some of you in this audience also. And we also have a great partnership with the Mount Vernon City Youth Bureau. We do have a great partnership, despite all odds. And they have a lot of programs in our buildings. And we work with the head of the Youth Bureau. And we are doing a great job with that as well. We have other consultants like Justice Fire, Reach, Scholastics. And I know Scholastics is getting bigger in our district and are going to do more projects. Family and community engagement. This is a big one for my department. And as you know, I have these 7 dynamic ladies who are called the parent liaison, and they're at the back there. And we also want to thank them for all the hard work they have done. And they have been reaching out with our community, to our community, and they work with Scholastics as well as Reach in making sure that the parents are heard. We provide workshops for them, and we also provide other training related to health. There's a CPR training that we have 3 classes in already, and people are arguing with me about having another 3 classes for the CPR training. That helps a lot too. We also increase community partnership to support student services. And we promote early literacy through the Mount Vernon Basics. And also we, in the Office of School Improvement, we work very closely with the CNI department in all different areas. And for example, the pre-K program. And I know that Dr. Borman is going to present to you in a few minutes how CNI department ties into this. So what's our next steps? Our next steps is as follows. As you can see, we are doing a New York State integration project, which we just got a grant for that. And we're going to follow through. But I'm not ready to roll that out yet because we're working on some kinks on that. We have 2 of our schools, Lincoln School and Rebecca Turner, is going to participate in the Middle States accreditation. It's going to be a one-year process, and this one-year process will say at the end, you are worthy. And this will encourage our kids to be equally educated. We also going to have Vernon City School District Mobile Van Family Resource Center, which means it's going to be a van going around Mount Vernon with all the resources from north to south, east to west, with all the information that we have in our district. And we are going to invite parents and all the stakeholders to come in the van. The van is being built with all the different shelves of what we're going to put the books on. And we are going to have a good time with that. And we're going to ask teachers to volunteer too if you want to go and be in that van. That's fine. And the Aspiring Leaders Principals Preparation Program, which is continuing, and I have Dr. Borman is going to be the one person to work with REACH and St. Rose to continue this program. And as you can see, everything up here that we have here is going to continue. We're going to continue with the Academic Power Hour. We're going to continue to assess student performance and data-driven instruction. We're going to focus on teacher and leadership development. And we are going to target academic supports and interventions for students performing below grade level, such as RTI and AIS. And now I'm going to ask Dr. Borman to come forward to tell you about what curriculum and instruction has done and will be continued to do. Dr. Borman.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, it's great to see everybody here. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Great. So there are four real tenets that really make a successful school district, and they start with the culture, the leadership, dynamic instruction, and systems that are dynamic regardless of who's there. And so if you think of CNI, think of them as just part of the family or an extension of the family. And they're all a major part of the student becoming successful. So under the supervision of Dr. Walden, Dr. Gayon, Mr. Paul, Dr. Collins, all the standards administrators, the principals, assistant principals, it really takes the family to start seeing the progress that we're starting to see today. And so what the CNI department has done is they've put in some best research-based practices and best instructional practices, and they've created a system so all kids are starting to interact with these types of best practices. And they're doing it under the leadership of our administrators and our teachers and our students and our parents and our family members. And we're starting to create some really dynamic, engaging instructional practices. So our kids are really at the center of the family, and they are the learners. And so what you'll see on these next two slides is simply the best practices that we've started to put in over the last 4 to 5 years in literacy, in mathematics, in social studies and history, in physical education and health, in science. Do I have a clicker? Is someone clicking for me?
Yes.
Okay. In special education, in E&L bilingual education, in technology, in our CTE, and our coaches that help the implementation. And it really is truly about deep implementation and not stopping and starting different initiatives and trying things. So in the past we've had pockets of success, and now we're starting to have success for all children. And I think that's why you'll see the district is starting to grow, and it's not an accident. It's intentional and it's purposeful because the same messages are starting to be conveyed from school to school. And so if you go to one school, you're receiving the same type of math instruction that you're receiving in another school. And that is becoming very powerful. And now what's happening is that we're refining those practices and we're going deeper. And it really does take a sustained amount of time at doing something and practice, and good practice, so practicing the right things in order to get some of the results that we're getting. So there is no one here that could do this by themselves. It truly is an extended family and a comprehensive family, and I think that's why we need to celebrate today, because we're all part of that family. So on behalf of the CNI department and the instructional piece on the curriculum, that's what the kids learn. I want to congratulate Dr. Bennett Conroy, and the entire district for their achievement.
Thank you, Dr. Gorman. Now we're going to look at some data as we go along before we get to the big part. So now we have the Mount Vernon District percentage performance, and it's in math, ELA and math. And it's at over a 3-year period. So you see that in ELA we went up, and in math we also went up. We have the district overall increase in ELA by grade. And you can see, as far as I'm concerned, the only one that we're really going to have to work a little on is our grade 7. Remember, we worked on grade 5 2 years ago. We closed that gap, and now we have to work on grade 7. But some of them is moving, but we need to do some work around that. Whether we have to replicate grade 6, we're going to have to come up with something like that. And I think Dr. Gorman and myself was talking, and he had some reasons why we're going to replicate that. But we can talk about that later. Okay. So the district overall increase in math by grade. And I have to tell you, this is impressive because you have schools make double digits up to 15% increase. And the state is only asking us for 2 or 3%. So it means that Mount Vernon City School District, as the state said, has outperformed the expectation of New York State Department. And that is something that we really should celebrate. District overall increase in ELA by school. So you could look at your school and you could see the increase again. Look at the green. Focus on the green. The green is the growth. And you see that green climbing up? You see that? That's us right there. So these kind of graph you have to keep and you have to cherish because you see you're doing well, but you're not there yet. Okay? So let's look at math. The district overall percentage in math by school. Again, the green. And you see we are climbing. So when anybody says anything to you about your school, just show them the graph. Okay? Make sure. But you have Mount Vernon High School for graduation, including August. And this is where we are. I mean, we have dipped a little, but this is what happens at times when you have kids going in and out. And I must say that grade, because we're doing the K through 8, and when you look at the slide before and you see how that percentage is rising in math and ELA, those are the kids who are going to be in the high school, and it's going to make the high school better as we move forward. So keep that in mind. All right? Okay. And I'm going to show you a video, so please look at it carefully for 2 seconds.
Supporting the work that we're doing here, parents also being diligent with following up with their children with literacy at home and practicing math facts at home.
It's about these kids ultimately becoming parents and staying in our community and sending their children to our schools. So we're really working on changing our culture.
My daughter attends school here, and I'm pleasantly surprised by everything that's going on. I'm excited about what she's learning. She's developing very quickly, and I'm just so happy that we're back in compliance, and I hope that this continues on through all the grades. And as a parent, I support whatever happens here, and I want to be a part of it, as well as my daughter being a part of it.
It also gives us study guides, so when we have tests, we are secure with what we are learning, so we don't get a bad grade on our tests.
We began very robust literacy programs using a balanced approach to literacy, ensuring that our students have enough vocabulary development, that they understand words and how to pull them apart and put them back together.
Between our colleagues and the administrators, with the help of the parents and the hard work of the students, we make sure that we strive to do the best that we can and work to the benefit of our students.
I'm especially pleased with the amount of professional development that has been poured into the district with the teachers, where we are actually looking at data, and that data is being used to inform instruction.
I like reading and math. I like math because you get to learn timetables, and I like reading because reading is you get to learn new words.
This is a district that has worked hard to increase student achievement, to be in good standings with New York State. In my classroom, we have utilized an RTI block every day to provide students that need extra support in reading using the leveled literacy intervention. And we also have modeled and coached classroom teachers to do the same with their students in their classrooms.
I feel pretty happy because now we're all a group and happy, and we're strong. Mount Vernon is strong.
I feel very proud because I feel like everybody's working together as a team.
And I'm very proud of Mount Vernon for getting off the list of not being, great schools. I think that my school for my son is amazing. He's doing fantastic. He's on the high honor roll for 2 years in a row already, and I think that the teachers and students in Mount Vernon are really great, and I would recommend them to anybody, and I love my city.
Very impressed with what Mount Vernon is doing. My kids have been in this school district for about 10 years. My daughter went here, 2 sons. One of my sons was won the science fair winner a long time ago. And I've seen a significant improvement over the last 10 years. I'm so impressed with what I see right here today. And these kids, these scientific activities that they're doing, I think they're doing a great job. Kudos to the Board of Education, to all the teachers in the school district. I think they're doing a wonderful job.
Things that we've worked to do is unify best practices across all of our classrooms. So whatever experience children were having in one school in 3rd grade, they were having in another school in 3rd grade.
What I like about Alkalete is we learn more rather than no one. We improve our grades, and we improve our math, reading, any subject scores.
We're absolutely elated that the schools are now in good standing. As a Mount Vernon City resident, and I have 3 children who attend public schools here, we're happy to know that our children are receiving the education that they should be getting, and that the Board of Education and the teachers are doing a good job at helping to improve the standings of the schools.
It's a privilege to be a part of the change happening in Mount Vernon, closing the achievement gap and getting our schools off the list.
Thank you so much. But I'm sorry about the sound, that it could have not been better, but probably I'm going to put it on the web and you can see that for yourself. I do apologize for that. Now, I have a group of students from Columbus, and we are going to have the second part of our presentation here. And I'm going to ask Dr. Hamilton, our superintendent of schools, to come forward, and also the president of the board, Ms. Wanda White. And also Dr. Gorman, our deputy superintendent, please come forward. So tonight we are going to present each school with a banner which says "School in Good Standing." And also we have 4 schools who didn't get their plaques. When they get off the list, we're going to do that tonight. But before we do that, we have a drum line from Columbus. Okay. Columbus, are you here?
while the students are coming up, we just want to show you what the banners look like that each one of our schools will be receiving, and they will be able to post these banners. This is part of our effort to rebrand our district and to celebrate the great work that's happening in our schools and around our community. So when people ask where my tax dollars go, it's going to make sure that we are providing quality educational programs for all of our students. Are students ready? Okay, we're ready. Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. On May 10th, we will be having a culminating event to celebrate the status of our schools with a citywide parade and motorcade that will go through the city and by each of our schools to recognize again the hard work. One of the criticisms that we get is that we don't do enough to talk about the great things happening in the district. So this is our way of really honoring the hard work of our teachers and principals and recognizing the work of our trustees for supporting what we are doing at the district level and making sure that we honor and value the work of our students. So this will begin, and I have to say we are proud that the parade and the event is sponsored by several other companies in our share. students. And our parent liaisons are making their way out to share with you a bag of goodies which says Mount Vernon City School Districts are officially on the rise. Our parade is being sponsored by 3 of our district vendors, Reach, Just Inspire, and Sylvan Learning Corporation. And so we're very thankful and very proud to have those kinds of partnerships. And before we move on to our student presentation, our school presentations, understand there's a special presentation this evening for Ms. Dweck from the PTA. And this is being presented by the PTA President, Mrs. Crenshaw. Ms. Crenshaw, remember when I told you just ride with me? Ms. Dweck? Oh, there she is.
I just want to say, on behalf of the PTA, Ms. DeWeck wears a lot of hats. I know sometimes she get a little frustrated with us, but she got a lot going on. But at the end of the day, she always has this beautiful smile. And we just want to say thank you for your hard work, and the PTA loves you. Thank you.
So we are going to call our principals up to receive your banners that you can proudly display on your school campus. So your names called out. Columbus School, Dr. Crawford. She's coming. Trapphagen. Mrs. Quinones. Mrs. Davis for homeschool. Jones, Lincoln School. Dr. Christy Waterman, Edward Williams. Benjamin Turner Middle School. Joe Campbell is accepting from Mr. McBride. Miss Wazlowski, Hamilton School. Parker School, Mrs. Natalie Dweck. Mr. Dan Brady, Pennington School. Mr. Eric Van Goten, Grimes School. Dr. Evelyn Collins, Thornton School. Mount Vernon STEAM Academy, progress on the line. Sharon Bratton. And this one, there's a special presentation this evening which recognizes all of the efforts that Mount Vernon High School has made. And following tonight's presentation, Mr. Gonzalez is going to be presenting his action plan. But while Mount Vernon High School is not yet on the list recognizes good standing, they have eliminated most of their indicators and only have 2 remaining. So this recognizes that Mount Vernon High School is on the rise as well. And again, there's a special plaque being presented. These were the schools that were not at the previous presentation. Pennington School. Edward Williams. Benjamin Turner, off the list. Grimes School, off the list. Graham School, Dr. Hunter McGregor. I feel like this is my Steve Harvey moment. So congratulations again to all of our schools for outstanding work. This is an exciting night. This is what it takes to get a turnout, huh? President White, would you like to say a few words before we move on?
I just would like to congratulate all the teachers, all the principals, all the staff in your building, because without you, this would not happen. So congratulations to all.
I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to really say to all of my principals and your staff how very proud I am. It took everything in me to fight back tears tonight. as our students were performing, and I looked at the progress that our district has made, and I don't accept any credit for it. It's really about the people who are on the front line and making it all happen, so I am so happy for you. And I have to say, this is not to separate anybody, but I have to acknowledge Edward Williams School. As you know, Edward Williams School has one of the most challenging student populations demographically, and the progress is so noteworthy that I just had to acknowledge them in a special way, because I know what you've done here. And again, you are welcome. That's not to take anything from anybody else. You've all done extraordinary work, but we know Edward Williams School had an uphill battle. So congratulations to you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Gonzalez to come up and present the action plan for Mount Vernon High School, and next year we will be here celebrating Mount Vernon being off the list. Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Hamilton, for this opportunity to present the progress that Mount Vernon High School has made. Thank you to the Board of Trustees for supporting all of the efforts that take turning a school like Mount Vernon High School around and a district like Mount Vernon City School District around. So I personally appreciate all of the support that you all have consistently shown. So the focus is changing the narrative around Mount Vernon High School. So unfortunately, for a very long time, for decades even, the narrative around Mount Vernon High School has not been one that is associated with all of the positive things that come out of Mount Vernon High School. And I'll share just a few of those with you this evening, but the goal for the next 5 years is to have all of the community feel good about sending their students, their children to Mount Vernon High School, about keeping their children in district for a K-12 experience, and about acknowledging the great work that some of our graduates are currently doing and will continue to do over the few years. So let's start with the elephant in the room, and that's a lot of the behavior issues that challenge a district like ours and a large comprehensive high school in an urban district. So what you see here is a comparison between 2017 and 2018, month by month, number of suspensions that were issued, either a principal suspension or a superintendent suspension. So you can see on the left side, you have the month for 2017-18. There were 19 suspensions. In October, there were 22. November, 44. December, 33. And January, 20. And if you look over to the 2018 side, you'll see that for the month of September, we doubled the suspensions to 36, and for October we rose to 80. So I'll stop there for a second, because part of what we decided on doing is having more of a zero-tolerance policy around October. However, what we also realize is that there is a spike in the number of student registrations that are over the counter. This morning I had the opportunity to meet with the superintendent's cabinet, and Mr. Silver asked me to conduct some research to find out whether or not the student suspensions that were so high in number for the month of October had anything to do with the number of students that come into Mount Vernon High School. what we can see is that as a transient population, we have a very, very high number of students registering for high school in October. Unfortunately, what comes with being a transient population is that several of those students come to us with academic deficiencies. What we know is that when students come to school with academic deficiencies, sometimes that displays in their behavior. And unfortunately, those are the students that we spend a little bit more time on as it relates to their behavior. So we're working to identify each one of those students and first of all find out if they're still registered in Mount Vernon High School, because of the transient nature, some of them do leave. And we also have a very high homeless population, as you all know, that we work with in Mount Vernon High School. So some of the initiatives that we've taken, that we've put in place, are listed here. I'll focus on two of them. One of them is called our Tuesday Nights Day initiative. This is an initiative that for one Tuesday out of every month, we take all of our clinical staff, that's our social workers, psychologists, school counselors, support staff, we have our school resource officer, security officers, custodians, and they push into classrooms for a full day. So they're in teams of two. That team of two will take one of the English teachers' schedules for that day, and they will teach all 5 courses that that English teacher would normally be teaching. While that's happening, the English teacher is receiving professional development services from one of our district instructional coaches or from an outside entity on the math side. So this happens in all of our English classrooms and all of our algebra classrooms. So the teachers are being trained for a full day of professional development, and the students are receiving character ed that is rooted, and there's a monthly theme that goes along with it, and it was a very grassroots approach. So we met with all of the clinicians and asked them, give me something that you're passionate about as it relates to social emotional development, and then we created a 10-month plan, a 9-month plan, because we're not doing it in the month of June. And so those folks are going in, pushing into classrooms. For the month of September, you may not be aware, September is Suicide Prevention Month. So that was the focus of our Tuesday Nights Day push-ins. And in that first session that we had, we stopped 1 suicidal ideation. So that, the first day that we did it, I was satisfied for the rest of the year, if we could save 1 student. Going straight down to the bottom is what we're doing around the security personnel in the building. I have a very close working relationship with Mr. Rosario, and he's in my building practically every morning, spends most of the day there. We've worked a lot on the security staff. We've talked about what professional development they need. Over the last 2 years, we have sent them to trainings on everything from de-escalation. They've taken a course called Verbal Judo, which I'm very interested in, but don't have the time to participate. They have taken courses on proper etiquette. We're starting an initiative that I just shared with Mr. Christoph, our attorney, called the Shake Every Hand Initiative, where we're going to ask every adult to shake 1 hand of a student. You know, I love my students. I can be with them in the park. I can be with them outside. But sometimes when they come into a very formal setting, they look confused, and I don't think enough students actually know how to shake hands. So we're starting an initiative called Shake Every Hand. And we're also going back to something that we implemented when I began at Mount Vernon High School, and that is a motto called Yell Praise and Whisper Criticism. So if you see someone doing something good down the hallway, that's appropriate to yell that you see them doing something good. If you see them doing something inappropriate, it's not appropriate to go and yell that they're not doing something appropriate. What's more appropriate is to get within proximity where you can whisper to them, and then you build a relationship with the student. As Dr. Bennett Conroy and Dr. Hamilton mentioned, we have made progress. We were originally cited for 5 subgroups. That is all students, students with disabilities, English language learners, African American students, and the economically disadvantaged. And we are down to 2. So the 2 areas that I feel most proud of our performance, our student performance, is in the category for African American males and the economically disadvantaged. I believe one of the ways to break the cycle of poverty is to educate our neediest children, and so we've made significant growth in those areas. So there are 2 areas that remain. and that's our students with disabilities population and the ENL population. So we found that through a data dive that what kept us on the list for ENL was 12 students. So as heartbreaking as that was, the data dive helped us to understand the ESSA rules and the ESSA regulations as it relates to every single student. So now we've taken a different approach with our ENL students. We have created what we call caseloads. So special education teachers have caseloads where they are responsible for a caseload of children that have a disability, that have an IEP, that they may not necessarily teach during the day. So we've started that approach with our ENL teachers. Now each of our ENL teachers has a caseload. We've worked with our instructional coach, who's now with us at the high school 3 days a week, to push into classrooms so that we can provide all of the supports for them in their ENL setting. We've also done the same for our students with disabilities, so we have access to our instructional coaches 3 days a week at the high school, including tomorrow, where 2 of our instructional coaches for special education will be participating in Gen Ed professional development for our Gen Ed teachers, and our ENL instructional coach will be doing the same. So a quick glance at what creates some of the performance gaps. What you see here is, this is algebra. This is a snapshot of the 2018 performance on algebra. What you see highlighted in red on the far right column is any subgroup whose performance was less than 30% proficient. So this is stark. This is a challenge for us. It is not something that we avoid. That's why I wanted to prominently display it to you all this evening so that you can understand where the gaps exist. So as it relates to algebra, this exam is offered in 9th grade. So we know that the students that are coming in, if you look at the 2 indicators on the left side of the column that are highlighted in red, that we are cited for, it's students with disabilities and ENL. Our students with disabilities are coming into the high school at a rate of 72% at level 1, and ENL is coming in at a rate of 54% at level 1. And we only have about 7.5 to 8 months to make up that gap to help them to perform. So this is living environment, and it looks exactly the same. One of the reasons we believe that it looks exactly the same is because it's another 9th grade assessment. Again, these are students that are coming into us with these learning gaps that exist for years. Some students on very, very low reading levels, academic reading levels, and we're charged with helping them to score at performance levels of 3 and 4 in just 1 academic year. So just so that you understand the depth to which that need needs to be met. So global history is a 10th grade exam, so you see a trend of less red. We feel like now that we've had the students for 2 years and we've molded them to more of an instructional core and an instructional foundation, they are able to perform better on assessments. That notwithstanding, we still have our students with disabilities scoring at a 60% at a level 1, and our ENL students 62% at a level 1. English Regents is a junior level exam, so there's less and less red. Here on the far right, we have students with disabilities scoring at a proficiency level of 25, if my eyes still work, and ENL scoring at a proficiency level of 34. 24. And the last slide is for U.S. history. So you can see here, which is another junior level exam, that the students are performing at rates that are much, much higher the longer they stay with us. Now, all of the research suggests that students that are classified as a student with a disability or ENL, the longer they're exposed to the curriculum, the better and the more proficient they become. So that's where we see that the efforts are paying off. So the New York State report card is released about a year behind. Right now, the 2018 report card was just released. On the 2017 report card, this is a snapshot directly from the district, from the state website, the state portal that lists all of the indicators that we were held accountable for to meet adequate yearly progress at Mount Vernon High School. So green is good. So we met all of our subgroup indicators for graduation rate for all 5 subgroups. That's for all students, students with disabilities, African American students, economically disadvantaged, and Hispanic students. In comparison of 2017 and 2018, you do see a drop in our overall graduation rate of 3%. However, what you also see is an increase in terms of the number of students graduating with advanced Regents diplomas. So that is a direct correlation to the instructional program that we have implemented starting 4 years ago, particularly around the time that we started to introduce AVID and the instructional strategies associated with more higher level courses and more rigorous courses. So you can see that the students that are prepared for those courses are doing well. One highlight that I'd like to mention is in the month of December, our mobile app development team, which is a team of 6 students headed up by one of our technology teachers, Mr. Burnside, was nominated for and won the mobile app development contest, which is held by the New York State Congress. They've now been invited to Washington, D.C. as a congressional mobile app development team, and they'll be there this April. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we need your support. John C. Maxwell, an author, says, "The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the leader adjusts his sails." We've done a lot at Mount Vernon High School to adjust our sails. We understand that we have significant growth to continue to try and make. We continue to need the support of the community, of the school board members, and of our superintendent of schools. So at this time, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them or turn back over to Dr. Hamilton and the school board. The slides are too blurry? I have to fix my glasses, they're foggy. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
With all the new buildings coming up that they're building around Mount Vernon, you know, the apartment buildings, no matter where they are we prepared for the influx of students coming in?
Good evening. Yes, we are. If you go to our district website, you'll see the 2020 vision. And one of the things that we are working on doing is bringing another school online. So the building currently known as Mandela will be refurbished and converted to a neighborhood pre-K-8 facility in order to accommodate more students as they come into our district and reduce some of the pressure on some of our other elementary schools that are using classrooms that are not ideal for instruction. Okay. Yes. Oh, good evening, Ms. McDowell.
But you know some of the gaps as it relates to the living environment and the English testing. Could you explain to us what initiatives that you're currently doing to close those gaps? Because you showed us how, as you keep the student longer, how they continue to progress. So could you please explain to us what tools you're using? I know we have the Sylvan and things like that, but are there any other type of programs that you're using to close those gaps?
And while you come to answer that question, one of the questions that I really want you to spend some time addressing is the discipline issues at Mount Vernon High School. That is a significant concern that I get feedback on a regular basis. So I want you to address that in addition to Mr. McDowell's question.
So first, Mr. McDowell, one of the things, so we know that the gaps exist for living environment and math in the 9th grade. So the way that we structure our master schedule will look to have a double block for math or a block and a half for math in 9th grade so that the students are exposed to more math instruction upon immediately entering the high school. We're also using, well, we haven't used yet, but we're exploring with Dr. Gorman's help, a blended learning model. One of the challenges, and so the blended learning model means that they'll spend some time in the classroom and some time on some sort of an online platform. The challenge is that the online platforms will never ever replace a teacher and the personal connection that comes with having a teacher in front of them. So one of the resources that we use through Dr. BC's office is the Academic Power Hour. Living environment is one of our most packed after-school subjects for after-school support and additional tutoring. Specific to living environment, students must meet a certain number of minutes in lab in order to qualify to take and to sit for and take the exam. So we are, I believe I saw Dr. Jagnandan, we have a lab tracker that we use to make sure that students are on track to meet all of the hours that they need in order to be able to sit for the Living Environment Regents exam. So those are just a few of the interventions that we're putting in place. As it relates to the student discipline, it is something that we live with every day. the first thing we're doing to combat is we show up to work every day. So I see one of my deans, Dean Wingate, who's here this evening. The superintendent was supportive of us bringing a second dean online this academic year. I can tell you that the work that they have put in is tremendous. So some of the steps that we've taken is we've created an in-school suspension room, and we're using that, I believe, much more effectively than we've ever tried to use it in the past. So one of the ways that we're using it effectively is we're now looping in all of the clinical support staff to provide mediation, to provide suspension re-entry meetings, to provide mindfulness training, to provide a lot of the things that we believe are at the core of what's creating this significant amount of misbehavior. One of the challenges that exists is the students will know when a fight is going to take place before we do. So they sensationalize the altercations by posting them on social media. You know, we try to help them to be good stewards of social media and to use it in a way that is effective, but the sensationalism that goes behind having people follow you or tag you, I'm not on any of the social media sites, to be frank with you, but the sensationalism that goes behind that creates a challenge. We know that at the root of this is a lot of social emotional support that the students need. So we have more clinical staff this year. We have another social worker. We have a currently composed, we have a part-time social worker that is responsible for substance abuse. We are, after today, I believe we may get additional support for that. We are now mandating that students that come in and appear to be under the influence of either alcohol or drugs have 5 mandated sessions with this social worker, and it is up to the social worker's discretion to increase that amount. We believe that that is part of a challenge for us. If you come to the high school and you stand at morning scanning with myself or one of the deans, you can see that the students, some of them are coming to school having already participated in some of those extracurricular smoke sessions. So the difficulty that we have is, ultimately my job is to make sure that that student graduates high school in 4 years. However they get to me, my job is to help them graduate. So I'm not one for turning students away and pushing them out. So we have to embrace them, we have to take them in. We're working desperately, but one of the things that we're fighting is an uphill battle because the strategies that we're putting in place between the hours of 8 and 2:30 or 2:50 are not necessarily supported when they leave our building to whatever place of employment they might go to, or home, or the community. So the 2 after-school programs that we have that are supported by the district office for the Academic Power Hour and Regents Prep helps to keep them in the building. We greatly value the partnerships that we have with the CBOs that help to keep them in the building, everything from Mount Vernon Strong and the Guidance Center of Westchester, as well as New York Gear Up. We have ample opportunities. There's no lack of opportunities for the students to stay in the building. We just know that when they come into us and they think that it's okay to engage in an altercation, sometimes they don't have the coping skills to fight those battles with words as opposed to their hands. So at the root of what we're trying to do is work with them. Now, that creates a different challenge for our staff, right? Because our teachers are at the front lines of having these children come to them, and sometimes the kids are unpleasant, right? They'll call us names. I've been called all sorts of names, and you have to come back to work the next day. You have to teach them. You have to show them that you are bigger than the situation that was created around them. But that takes a toll on the staff. So I recognize that. One of the things that we'll be doing tomorrow during our professional development day is some team building exercises just to show the staff that I greatly appreciate the work that they do, because they're the ones on the front lines as well as the deans and administration.
Can I ask a question? I hear the presentation that you got, but there's one disconnect I don't hear, and that is the community at large. These are our children, and yet we feel like that we are not a part of it. I think you're doing a wonderful job in terms of putting on the clinical aspect of it, but a lot of these children need some love and tender care that perhaps you all may not be able to give. I think that you need to develop a strategy where the community at large can be connected some kind of way, because there's a lot of madness that's occurring in the high school and it affects the whole community. So if there's a way you come up with a plan, I think my president UBC and churches and synagogues and mosques and leaders and community stakeholders are interested in how we can help to resolve these issues.
So Bishop, you raise a good point. We've been talking about developing a task force around addressing some of the discipline issues at Mount Vernon High School, because at the end of the day, while the behavior manifests itself in the high school, and the high school is blamed for a lot of it, the high school just happens to be the place where all the kids come together. The truth of the matter is, most of the instances occur outside the school, and the school becomes the place where they get to act out. Thank you. I was trying to think of something a little more clinical, but act out is the best way. So that is a part of the problem, and it's going to take the community. At the end of the day, people are sending us the best they have. It's not like they're sending us the kids that get in trouble and keep the good ones at home. They're sending us the best that they have. But when we see the stuff on social media about the issues that our children have at our high school, and the high school does have to take some responsibility. I'm not letting Mr. Gonzalez off the hook. The high school has to take some of that responsibility in terms of how security is utilized, how teachers accept responsibility for monitoring conduct in the hallway, what happens in the instructional core, so that students don't have the time to be disengaged. But at the same time, the community has to recognize that often parents come in and model the same behavior that the kids have in school, and that's a huge issue. And in order for us to really wrap our arms around this, we have to have some parent trainings. When parents come in and curse you out and call you outside and things of that sort, you can't expect kids to behave differently. So there's enough blame to go around in terms of what's happening in the high school. But ultimately, if we are really about changing what happens in our high school, we have to change what happens in our community, and it's going to take more than just the educators to do that. So I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to say that. I wasn't going to bring it up tonight, but since you gave me that opportunity to say that, this task force will need community members, members of our clergy, members of our civic associations, of course our Board of Trustees, parent members, and all stakeholders in our community to really address what's happening systemically in our community that perpetuates violence, and why our kids are operating on such short fuses, and why that behavior comes into our schools. Yes.
So in the same vein as Bishop just mentioned, can we create something that looks like a school without walls in the community and look at 4 or 5 issues: academic enrichment, cultural enrichment, positive youth development that deals with the social and emotional issues and things of that nature. If we look at specific issues and as a community come together around a collective impact model, like you said, including all sectors, this puts out a challenge to the community, and it lets us know what you need insofar as mentors, tutors, things of that nature.
Absolutely.
So if we really, really create a plan, then the challenge is put out to the community. And as it was the bishop who stood up, the churches in the community have a lot of space and are looking for opportunities to potentially partner. So this could be a great, great opportunity and a marriage. And instead of us sitting back and complaining about what's not being done, it's an opportunity for us to become engaged, inspired, and connected, and empower ourselves to empower the community.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So this kind of turnout, when we announce the task force, this is the kind of turnout we need for that task force. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
I just would like to say that I am very proud of my principal, Mr. Gonzalez. He works very hard, okay? And not only that, he needs help. Yes. Okay, he needs a lot of help. We feel at Mount Vernon High School that Mount Vernon High School is a dumping ground for, you know, for students, for the rejects, or the students that, you know, misbehave, things like that. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, he needs help. How is it that, okay, most of our students, most of the Mount Vernon High School students live on this side. We don't have transportation. We are the farthest high school, almost in Pella. We practically in Pella. And we don't have transportation for our children. It's disheartening. And I'm picking up children as I'm driving. I'm picking up children. Boop, boop, picking them up. Come in my car. I'll drop you to school when it's freezing outside and they're walking from their house to Mount Vernon High School and have to walk back. Okay, it's very unfair. It's very unfair. Number one, it's not everyone that can afford to give their child $5 every day for transportation to get on a bus. Okay, we just don't have it. Okay, we just don't have it. Some of us do, but most of us don't. Okay, that's number one. How is Mount Vernon High School academically is going to rise like the rest of the schools if the kids don't want to attend the after-school programs, don't want to attend strong? We have excellent after-school programs in Mount Vernon High School. Okay, the students hardly attend because how do you feel? Do you want your child to be walking in the winter, cold, at 5 o'clock when it's dark, walking from Mount Vernon High School all the way home? That's number one. That's why they don't attend to the after-school programs, the strong program, the Regents preps, things like that. The PTA parent, you understand? How are the students going to excel when they can't get to school and they can't get home? That's unfair to our students. But other schools get transportation or a little budget for money for transportation, Metro card. Something has to be done, Dr. Hamilton. It has to be done now. That's number one. Number two, I feel that, okay, we need more teachers at Mount Vernon High School. We have 40, 35, 40 students in one class for one teacher. Come on. And a lot of other students, like you said, has IEPs, has things like that, learning disabilities. One teacher, 35, 40 students, no wonder the chaos in that school. Okay, no wonder the students can't rise to the occasion or things or accomplish what they're supposed to accomplish, Dr. Hamilton. This is mad, it's outrageous. And it's unfair. And it's unfair.
So wait a minute. First of all, I'm gonna need you to calm down a little bit now, because nobody's blaming Mr. Gonzalez at all. Mr. Gonzalez is revered. What we are doing is finding out what supports are needed for Mount Vernon High School, and we are well aware of the conditions that exist. Transportation is an issue. We know that's an issue. There was transportation in the district several years ago, many years ago, that was removed from the budget during the austerity years. And if the community is advocating for that, and if the community says, we'd like to see this in the budget, and the community supports that budget, that becomes an edict from the community. So we need to hear your voice in that format in order to make that happen. But one of the challenges that we have is when we hear concerns like that, and we start looking at how do we provide those kinds of services that were once in place, and then people turn around and say to us, don't raise my taxes, that becomes a contradiction. Because while you want more services and you don't want to pay for them, the Board of Trustees and the administration have to figure out how do we create the appropriate balance. Now that's my superintendent voice. My dad voice says when kids are serious about their education and parents take it seriously, they get them to school. That's the bottom line. And when you have a job to go to, you go to that job and you do what you have to do. There should not be, with the exception of a PE class, there should not be 40 kids in a classroom. And if that is happening, we need to find out where that's happening and why that's happening, because there is sufficient staff at Mount Vernon High School to make sure that class sizes are appropriate.
We have a lot of students with IEPs in Mount Vernon High School.
That's true.
That needs 2 teachers We do not have them, Dr. Hamilton.
I will look into that.
You need to look into
I
that.
promise you that I will. I promise you that I will.
That's right. You need to look into that.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I'd like to, I'm going to ask Mr. Gonzalez to share your name so I can get you in.
I'm Catherine Smith. I'm the Vice President of Mount Vernon.
Very well. Okay. When I call on you, Ms. Smith, bring your fire, okay? All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, yes, ma'am.
I'd like Dr. Principal Gonzalez to elaborate on the 3 times a week pushing for the disabled students
Sure.
to help the gen ed teachers.
Hi, Ms. Santiago. So I may have misspoken. It's not a push-in 3 times a week to help the gen ed teacher. What we've done is we have instructional coaches throughout the district, and they have responsibility to all of the schools. So when the data came out from ESSA that indicated that one of the indicators that kept us on the list was students with disabilities, I reached out to central office and requested the support of the district coaches in my building 3 days a week. So they're not necessarily pushing into a very specific classroom. What they're doing is they're working with all of, we do have a very high population of students with disabilities, but I think that's a direct result of the number of services that we offer across the spectrum of special needs. So those district instructional coaches are doing everything from professional development with gen ed and special ed teachers. They're doing some collaborative circles with the co-teachers that exist in the math and English courses. They're doing some differentiated instruction strategies. So tomorrow, Dr. Corpus, one of our special ed supervisors, will be leading a session on differentiation. 2 of our instructional coaches will be leading a session. So a lot of what they're doing is professional development. They're not necessarily going in to teach the course. They're going in to help teachers better prepare their lessons for the next day's course and helping them with their pedagogical strategies.
So my concern is that you have a lot of gen ed teachers, not even just gen ed teachers, you have a lot of teachers in general in high school, nobody reads the IEP. I can tell you that from 3 years of experience.
Thank you.
And you've been there, Dr. Corpus has been in the meetings, Chanel was there. I'm very thankful, I have to say publicly, for Ms. O'Brien, who's there now.
She's outstanding.
She's a godsend. She's so sweet. She's very reactive, responsive. She listens. She takes the handle of the situation. However, I have not met a teacher who has read, nor a therapist, and he's had the same therapist since he's been there for 2.5 years, that has read his IEP until I forced it. So that's very concerning because even though you have people coming in who are helping to train with whatever words you use that I don't really use on a daily basis, they're still not looking at the individual. Because my son, well, we had a recent email going back and forth, but my son can learn, just not at the speed of her daughter. Thank you. He has an IEP. He excels in English. He looks great in English. People look at his English scores and like, oh, he's great. No, no, no. He has a processing speed of less than 2. So he's taking statistics. That's a problem. That's huge. I'm glad he's taking statistics. I want my son to earn the grade that he gets so that he has self-confidence. But I think that's what needs to be taught. It's to read those IEPs, understand those IEPs, treat them. I know they can't treat every student, but I'm going to reverberate what she said, is that you have classes that have over 30 students. My son was in a lab class with 32 students. He couldn't get to the thing. Nope. So when I spoke to the teacher goes, oh, well, we can't get him up there for safety issues. So why is he taking the class? So in addition to that, it's also the structure of the school does not enable disabled students to roam freely because my son is going from the first floor all the way to the second floor. He walks with a walker. He's exhausted by the time he gets to that class, right? And he's ping-ponging. You can look at the schedule.
So I think
it's structure.
Right.
It's staff from top to bottom, reading IEPs and becoming educated on the different disabilities and looking at the specific criteria in the learning aspect where they can benefit and teach.
So in my most layman terms I could possibly put it, you're absolutely correct. What you're describing is a systems issue. So what systems do we have in place to ensure that teachers are reading the IEP, that they're meeting the needs of the students with, that's listed in the IEP, et cetera? What I can assure you of is that we do have a system in place for that. If it's a lack of a if it's
legal binding.
yeah, you are 100% correct. And if
When
it's
I talk to the teachers, they say they do it, but they don't read it. So what's the benefit of having that in place if there's no repercussions for them not doing what they're supposed to, which is legally binding, right, Mr.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know we've had a lot of conversations around that. I'll be more than happy to engage with you on the side.
And I have to tell you, Mr. Gonzalez, it's just required. Yeah. Because my son was in high school a long, long time ago, right? And it's those points in time where you have to take that opportunity, because then you lose that. That's where you either have a problem.
I'll engage with you on the back.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you bringing those thoughts up. All right, so we're going to close out the Mount Vernon High School presentation. Mr. Gonzalez, thank you. We will be convening that task force and getting our community involved in helping solve the issues, the very issues that we are discussing this evening as it relates to Mount Vernon High School. And lastly, this evening, in terms of the superintendent's report, is our budget, preliminary budget review. So we are going to take a few minutes. This is not the final version of the budget. We have handouts available that contain the school board and budget election dates, times, locations. It also shares with you, we also share with you this evening the polling sites that you need to be familiar with in order to participate in the school election process and the school budget vote. So that information is also on our website, and there are handouts available for you this evening. Again, we will be having a full budget presentation at a later date. Tonight is our preliminary budget review that reflects what ultimately is going to be a look at our expenditures and our sources of revenue and our efforts to go out, and while we're increasing our budget by adding more programs and services to our students, it is our goal to go out with a zero tax levy increase to the local taxpayer again this year. Mr. Silver.
Good evening. I'm surprised anybody has any good evening left, but all right, that's better. This will be short, easy to digest, easy to understand, clear, and we are not taking questions tonight. Tonight is only a preliminary budget review. And so there we are. So let's move to the next slide. So this is the one that's most important. The slide on the left shows our overall budget increase for the past 4 years. We're going into our 5th year. On the right side is the taxes. We've only increased the taxes once since this administration got here 5 years ago, led by Dr. Hamilton. Once. And that was by 0.89%. A little over $1 million tax increase in 5 years. Nobody in the entire state has ever done that and probably never will. So on the right is the taxes. The taxes will remain the same for next year as of this point. However, move to the next slide. No, go on to the next one, then we'll come back. So, this slide concerns aid. We're talking about foundation aid being the most important. Right now, the governor has proposed 1.8% increase in our foundation aid, which is about $1.3 million. If we do not get substantially more than that, we will probably have to cut the budget number that we have now. It won't affect the taxes because we're committed not to increase taxes, but we will have to cut some $366,000 out of the budget. This budget contemplates 2.3% increase in foundation aid, which is $366,000 more than the governor. We subscribe to a service that helps us with our planning for our revenue, and that service provided by the state has suggested that we will be okay at 2.3% increase in foundation aid, but we don't know what ultimately will happen with the legislature and the governor agreeing on an increase. To help us with our revenue each year, we apply a certain amount of restricted fund balance. Restricted means the board has designated certain fund balances to be used for certain purposes. One purpose is to cover the cost of health insurance. Another is for the cost of employee retirement, not teacher retirement, employee retirement. Another is to cover the cost of workers' comp. This year we happen to be fortunate in that we took out 2 bonds in the last year and got some $10 million in premiums, money the bank gives us for doing business with them on our some $70 million in bonds. And we are applying a portion of that for the next year's budget. So we have altogether about $4.7 million that the board, we're going to be asking the board to apply from a restricted fund balance. There is lots of restricted fund balance left, but we are only using this much this year because we need it for next year and the year after and the year after, and we do not want to deplete these resources that we are so fortunate to have. Can you go back one? So I thought it'd be worth seeing what some of our expenditures are going to be next year and what we're trying to do. So at the suggestion of the Budget Committee and with agreement from the superintendent, we have added in the culinary arts renovation at the high school. This was originally not in the budget that we had thought we were going to be doing, but we have $800,000 in there, and that program, once this budget passes, that program will be up and running in the fall. We don't know exactly when. There's a large renovation project. When we got here 5 years ago, several board members and I cleaned that room. We found a French fryer with grease in it. It had been sitting there for 6 years. That room had not been used for a long time. It will be up and running this year. We also have $800,000 in the budget to finish the science labs at Grimes and Trophagen so that the 7th and 8th grade will have science labs. We have $40,000 to renovate the girls' locker room. The boys' locker room has already been done. The girls deserve equality, equity. We've increased the amount for the Office of School Improvement, and you can see why we can justify doing that based on Dr. Bennett Conroy's presentation. And we have $1 million to, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be $100,000. $100,000, a little typo, I apologize for that. $100,000 to replace the gym floors in 3 of the elementary schools, a $900,000 increase in building repairs. We have maybe $120 million in building repairs to do, but we've designated $1 million for the most serious repairs for next year. And we are getting 1 new truck, replacing a truck that's probably 25 or 30 years old. And then we are increasing, $700,000 goes to increase the services for students with disabilities and our multi-language learners. And on the other side, we also have $500,000 increase in school community programs, which helps us with the liaisons and all our other school community programs. On the other side, several decreases. The teacher retirement system is doing very well, and our premiums for that will be decreased by $1.2 million. And we also have a decrease of $1.2 million in debt service. Typically, I'll be quick, I'm just getting a look. Typically, we have an $8 million decrease in our debt service every year. So in 3 years, we will have a $24 million decrease in what we owe altogether. However, we took out a $30 million bond this year, and so we have the debt service starting on that. But this will revert back to a much larger decrease in the coming years. So in 5 years, we will have $40 million off of our debt. That decreases the premium, the principal, and that decreases the interest. So that's really all we're going to do tonight. Our budget is $254 million. Could you go back to the first slide, please? Our budget will be $254 million. It's up It's up $2.9 million. Last year, it was up double that. So this budget increase is half of last year's budget increase with no tax increase contemplated as of this time, 4 out of 5 years. That is really something you should celebrate the superintendent and the board for. Thank you.
So while the board members go back to the dais, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. BC and Dr. Gorman for an outstanding presentation this evening on our school status. Again, to applaud our principals for their great work. Mr. Silver, for your presentation on the preliminary budget. The budget will be posted on our district website, and we will be having a formal public hearing on the budget as required by law and a formal presentation. In lieu of the cottage or the community forums that we've been having, we are going to expand our Facebook Live presentations around the budget. We have found that more people participate using that mechanism for presenting the budget, and that you will have an opportunity to ask your questions on Facebook Live, and those dates are available in the back as well, and also on the district website. But that information will help you be a part of the budget process. You'll be able to ask specific questions, and we will answer them live on Facebook. And even if you don't have a question, you will benefit from the other questions that people are posting on our Facebook Live chat. And that concludes the Superintendent's Report this evening, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the President. I really don't have a report tonight. I just want to thank all the people that presented. Columbus School's drumline, which was fantastic. I also attended, I did attend Rebecca Turner's talent show last week, and it was fantastic. We had comedians, we had singers, saxophone players, and this drumline was there also, which I thought was from the Performing Arts School. So kudos to the drumline from Columbus, and that ends my report. Committee reports. Anyone have it? Okay, Trustee Saunders.
Hello, everyone. I had everyone
Speak into your mic, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
The school wellness, the district wellness committee met yesterday at the school district at 4 o'clock. We discussed the nutrition policy district-wide. We discussed the nutrition policy district-wide. We also discussed the celebration and reward of fundraising that should be which should be healthy. So we're going to enact the policy regarding healthy fundraising and rewards for the district. We discussed wellness in each building, the vending machines. We're going to check the distributor and who gets the check, because we don't know who gets the checks for the vendors and the vending machines. And we would like it to go to the activities fund in each building. We would like the staff, and also the only school that has a wellness committee is Lincoln, so kudos to Lincoln School. So we would like to get that up and running in all schools. We hope that the PTA will help do that. We're looking to have events such as blood pressure checks, Zumba classes, kickboxing, yoga, walking clubs, martial arts classes. The schools that have the most activities may get medals, maybe some kickboxing classes from community vendors. We'd like to have, the Wellness Committee would like to meet with the superintendent with regards to the service company that just makes, I guess we're going to have a bid next week. So I believe that's going to be next week sometime. The superintendent's going to let us know. All right? And that's pretty much it. Our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, April 24th at 4 o'clock. My special ed meeting is going to be next week at Rebecca Turner from 6 to 7:30. And we're going to discuss summer camps for special ed. That's pretty much it. Trustee McGowan?
I do anticipate during unfinished business at this meeting proposing that we adopt the grading and retention policy that we have discussed at several meetings. And my understanding from administrations that are now prepared to recommend that we adopt that with the understanding that it will not be implemented until September. But we need to have it be a policy to give teachers and administrators sufficient time for the next few months to prepare and adjust accordingly in preparation for next year's grading.
I have no report.
Trustee Torres?
Sure. Good evening. The Budget Committee met on Friday, March 15, to review a draft budget that was presented this evening by Assistant Superintendent Silver. Essentially, the information that we reviewed and discussed was what was presented this evening, so I won't repeat it. The only thing I did want to mention, the most significant action that was taken at the Budget Committee was a directive given to the Assistant Superintendent to proceed with the renovation of the Culinary Arts Kitchen at Mount Vernon High School, which we are all really excited and looking forward to having that program up and running. So with that, I'll just let you know the next meeting of the Budget Committee will be held on Thursday, March 28th at 8 a.m. at the Mount Vernon City School District office.
Thank you. Okay, that ends the committee report. We will now be entering into executive session.
We need a motion to enter executive session to receive advice from counsel, to discuss pending litigation, to review the employment history of a particular person or persons, and student matters.
Can you be more specific when you say student matters?
It's a special education.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a suspension appeal.
Thank you.
I have a motion from Trustee Miller.
I'll second.
Second.
Trustee Jaros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
This, we will probably be in session for at least an hour and a half.
Yes. Motion to reconvene, please. Motion.
So moved.
Trustee McOwen. And I believe I heard Trustee Patterson?
No.
Trustee Jaros.
No.
Trustee Torres. I'm sorry. I'm not winning anything this night. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
All right, Madam President, we'll begin the action items on the agenda with the update on the change orders that are on tonight's agenda.
Good evening. The first change order will be Thornton High School Fault Electric. I'm going to ask Mr. Daviello to speak on it.
This includes additional electrical scope for light fixtures that had to be relocated at the lower level of Thornton, and this was due to unforeseen field conditions related to ductwork that had to be modified in the area where we had the proposed mechanical space and trench work. We had to make those modifications following demolition. So this was to accommodate the lighting layout.
The second one is EC25, also at Thornton, Fault Electric. This was a change from two-phase electric to three-phase electric. The contract documents specify the two-phase 60 amp circuit breaker, but the mechanical equipment required a three-phase. So this was also a field condition. It was negotiated down 75% from the original price. The original price was $4,200, and we got it for $1,000 after negotiations with both Savin and PGA. Third one, electrical contract number 26, Thornton 12th Electric. This one was, this is a code requirement, and I'll ask Ken to speak on this one as well.
So this was related to the two Lula lifts, which are the limited use elevators. There was scope that was required but not shown in the documents for light fixtures, which was a more recent code change. So we had to accommodate that to satisfy the code requirements, which require a light and separate switching within the elevator pits.
Electrical contract number 27, Thornton High School 12th Electric. This is to provide interduct enclosures for existing data cables and secured to the new gypsum board ceiling in the experimental theater. So when they ran the wires, the data cables, they needed to be enclosed in a casing that, and it's actually, in existing wires, it's actually orange. If you were in the theater, you can see it up there, and it protects the data cables that were up there.
But didn't they know that before? That you had to cover the wires?
They didn't know these wires were run. When they demoed the original ceiling,
these
data wires were there. And we investigated the option of trying to relocate that, but there wasn't enough slack in the run of wire to modify it.
So the choice was to either encase them or remove them and rerun wires, and that would have been 3 times the cost. Next one is electrical contract number 28, Thornton High School 12th Electric. This is to provide a power feed. There's a couple of these that are very similar. This is a power feed for a condensing unit and an air handler unit. This is to bring it closer to the interior units. These are roof units. And to bring the conduit and the wire in closer to the existing unit on the inside. There's 2 of these that are very similar, and a third one that's close as well. So what we had to do is just run new piping and wire to connect these 2 wires. We had to move these units for unforeseen conditions on the roof. So we moved them, which would require then to move to reinstall new wiring. Yeah, this one. Okay, so the next one is, what's the number? 29. This is EC 29, Thornton School, 12th Electric. Ken will speak to this one.
It's a similar condition to what Michael just described. It's just a different unit. And to elaborate on what Michael was explaining, the anticipated location for the new rooftop units that were shown on the drawings had to be changed because of conditions discovered on site, and because we were trying to save additional cost actually by locating it closer to the interior unit that's part of the same system. But what happened was the electrical contractor was ahead of the mechanical contractor in their scope of work. And so these change orders represent the change just for the electrical modification to the new rooftop unit location.
The next one is EC 31, Thornton High School, 12th Electric. This one was an omission to the documents. This was missed in the documents by PGA. What we will do, like we've talked about in the past, is once the substantial completion is, we are going to revisit the omissions and with the attorneys and everything when we do closing documents. So this one was fire alarm wiring, electrical conduit to furnace, installed duplex receptacles, smoke detectors, and fire alarm strobes at the auditorium Lulu elevator machine room. So it just wasn't in the documents, and then when we did a code revision or code inspection, we realized that these were not there, and we ordered the change order on that. The district went forward with that one. EC number 32, 12th Electric, Thornton High School. Ken, I'll ask you.
Sure. When we were performing the demolition work at the proposed new main entry at Thornton, they took the ceiling down. There was existing ductwork that was discovered that was running through that space, which we needed to eliminate, as well as cabling that had already been installed by, cabling that was already in place at that location. So the elimination of that ductwork involved relocating an existing exhaust fan, and this change order represents refeeding that exhaust fan in the new location, so we didn't have that exposed duct in the space.
EC number 33, Thornton High School, 12th Electric. This one involves some rigging. So when we did the rigging in the auditorium, what we found is that the wiring that was originally spec'd was 3-wire, whereas the equipment needed 4-wire. So we had to pull a different wire in there, and that created the change order. It was a substitution. This one was a field condition, and the pulling of the new wire and the conduit is what caused the change order to occur.
Can I ask what Talt Electric's original bid was? Like the contract, I mean, the Thornton.
We don't have that. I don't have that information. I can get it. Yeah, I don't have that.
And what's the status of the Thornton theater renovations generally? Like, when are they done? What's the
substantial completion for the theater itself will be there's a performance at the end of May, beginning of June. So the theater will be ready for that. But the continuous work will continue through the summer. We have site work to do outside, and then the addition, the gym addition, and the stair tower.
What's the timing for the plaza? The exterior renovation outside the theater?
Over the summer, it'll be ready by September. For the you mean the site work? What's that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm saying outside the front, on the street.
Yeah.
Outside of the theater.
That'll be done throughout the summer, so it'll be ready for school. Okay. Next one is Thornton GC, number 74, Nyram. I'll ask you to do that one.
So this was at, again, the experimental theater. At the end of the summer, we were trying to get the space open as soon as possible. Part of that work was installing code-required sheetrock ceilings for a fire rating because of the existing wood structure above, and that work preceded mechanical work that happened after the fact with new duct penetrations, so the GC had to come back to facilitate that, create these openings in the ceilings for the mechanical contractor to then come back and continue their work.
The next one is GC number 75, the auditorium floor repair at Thornton. Nyram is the contractor. When we did the demo of the floor, of the carpeting that was existing there, the unforeseen condition, and it must have just gone over it when the carpeting was put in, there was 150 electrical boxes in the floor. So we needed to then patch and prep every one of those to accept the new flooring that's gonna have to go over the new seating layout. And the new seating layout. So there must have been, in some old design, these floor junction boxes that are no longer needed, but they were there. They existed, so they needed to be patched.
I'm having a little trouble following. You say the auditorium, where the audience sits, or it's not the stage? You're talking about
the audience. The audience. So on the main level and the balcony.
Both.
Right. So this is replacing every electrical box?
No, just because we're not using them. Abandoned. They're abandoned boxes and covered over with whatever the covering was, but it wouldn't be enough. It needs to be patched now in order to accept the new seating, so we're going to bolt into the deck. So these boxes were everywhere. There was 150 of them, and we discovered that once the demo was done.
But isn't it? It's a wood floor.
It's concrete.
Oh, it's all concrete?
Yeah.
It's all concrete?
Yeah. So the whole floor got prepped, but this was in addition to the standard prep called for in the documents, because they had to fill those voids.
Right, so they bid a contract to, repair and refinish the concrete floor, but they didn't anticipate 151 holes in it.
Right.
Okay.
4x4 holes. They were rather large, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's big.
Okay. GC number 56. This is Pennington. Nyrum is the contractor.
Sure. Following demolition in the existing building at the area of the new pre-K classrooms, there was existing piping on the back side of the wall that abutted the boys' bathroom. And when we demoed the space for pre-K, we discovered these pipes, and that portion of the classroom, that wall, was going to be part of a teaching wall. So we couldn't just chase it to have that bump out on the wall. So this change order represents furring that wall to create a smooth face of wall to hide the existing pipes that needed to remain.
The next one, GC.
How big was that? How large was that wall?
It was the full depth of the classroom, so probably 20 semi-feet.
$5,000 to the sheetrock, 27 feet?
What includes the stud work, the sheetrock, and the finish work.
You know we paid more than...
Yeah, it's prevailing wage. I mean,
prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage. I mean, the wage, that part of it is already in the contract. That's contractual, what they charge us for labor and time. So there's no addition to that. That is just what it would have cost no matter when we did it.
Can I just, how is this different from change order 26? At least on our agenda, it's identical. Maybe there's an error in how these were uploaded.
26.
Where's right? Rick, you see that? 11.7. Look at 11.7, change order 26. And 11.9.
I don't have a 26.
That's 24.
Trustee.
Well, 11.7 is for Thornton, and the one they're referring to is Pennington.
I know, but it says provide and install a 2.5-inch metal furred wall at existing boys' bathroom south wall as per revision 32, right?
That's the one we just did, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says. We change order 26 and 1.7. There's an error somewhere.
It sounds like a mistake.
On whatever it is that you're reading, we don't have
We need to correct the description of change order 26 in agenda item 11.7.
Trustee, can you just, we don't have a 26 here. I don't see a 26.
It may have shifted because there were some...
No, change order number 26.
We don't...
For Tulsa Electric. For $3,378.91.
EC 026. Mine says EC to install vapor-type LED light fixtures.
Yeah, it's just labeled incorrectly on our agenda.
So, EC means electrical contract, GC means general contractor. So I don't see, we don't have a 26 anywhere in our documents here.
You just talked about it.
EC, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
EC.
EC 026.
Talks.
It's in 11.7.
Yeah, I described that for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we wrote the wrong number on the sheet.
It's just wrong in our agenda.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
It's a wrong title. We just need the title corrected.
Okay.
So Rick needs to know what to call it.
I'll take care of it. All right, I'll work with Rick on that to correct that. GC 57. This was, we needed to use extra tile to do the 2 rooms in the kitchen, right? Pennington kitchen. So we just ran out of tile. So this was just a purchase of additional tiles and the installation. So we did the 2 storerooms, which were not in the original documents to do, but we did them because it was a better finish for it. And then we ran out of tiles for the main part. So this was just a repurchase of tiles and installation, both. And then the last one is a credit for $1,200. And that was the five schools project for 2C. And that one we did some ductwork penetration. We didn't do ductwork penetration that was on the original scope. And Rick, I'll work with you to change that. What's that?
It's just about that.
Okay. And that concludes it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Opportunity for board members to remove an item from the consent agenda.
11:12.
11:12. Anyone else?
That's fund transfers, Mr. McCollum?
Correct. Do we, before we vote on consent, I just can you let us know right when you've updated that one? Oh, it's already done. It's fixed. Vapor LED lights and light switches. Yes.
That's it. Motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second. Trustee Saunders, Trustee Williams. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Can we have a motion to place authorization to transfer funds from the unrestricted fund balance?
Motion.
Trustee McOwen.
Second.
Trustee Williams.
Thank you. I just had a question for Mr. Silver. I remember talking about this, and I understand the background of this. Can you just remind us, where is our fund balance? What's the amount it's at now before implementing this? And then what is the, because we haven't gone through the budget detail yet, like what are your thoughts about the fund balance for the budget?
I put all the budget copies in the car.
Oh, you don't have one?
Does somebody have a copy of the budget?
Sure.
Because it is in there.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure how I should take this. Let me take it from the budget document that you received tonight. If you have that, it's on the bottom of page 3. So, including the $964,000 tonight, including $1.5 million that's contemplated to be spent from unrestricted fund balance, down $400,000 from the current year, including all of that, which includes the high school kitchen, there's $6.6 million left in fund balance, which is about 75% of maximum fund balance.
Meaning that's the amount that's anticipated to be left over at the end of June this year.
At the end of June, plus anything that's left over from this year at the end of June, plus anything that's from that $1.4 million that I mentioned in the certiorari deadline.
Right.
So that's after all of that takes place.
Right.
So after the $1.5 million contribution, after the 964, and that includes the kitchen.
And the current proposed budget, which we'll now look at, that you presented tonight, does that contemplate increasing the fund balance, decreasing it, or leaving it the same for next year?
The budget doesn't speak to what the fund balance will be. It only speaks in terms of, this assumes nothing left over at the end of the year. That's what this does. So hopefully there'll be money left over at the end of the year, which will add to fund balance. And again, the certiorari money should add to fund balance. But if none of that happens, we'll still be at $6.6 million, about 75% of maximum fund balance.
Because the cap is like 11 or something?
The cap is about 10.2.
10.2, okay. All right, I have no more questions.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Are we having a second reading of the, or we're just going?
It's not technically, it's there, it's listed as a second, but it's a separate action.
Okay.
Yeah, the consensus agenda included the superintendent items, correct?
Yes.
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 Awesome.
So we're going to unfinished business, Michael?
Correct. I would propose that we adopt the promotion, retention, and grading policy that we have discussed at several meetings. I know there's been some discussion, even more discussion after the year of preparation that went into this, since we've done the first two official readings of this. There have been no changes since the last version of this that was posted online, and it's been posted for, I think, a month now on the district website. I would propose that we adopt it and let the district prepare to implement it in September.
This is adopting it for the next fiscal year.
It's adopting it now. It is the policy of the district, but we all understand that we're almost at the end of the school year. They're not going to implement brand new grading procedures in the next 4 weeks. So, but now this will give the principals, APs, teachers, everyone time to start getting on the same page about structuring their curricula with consistent grading across schools throughout the district. Which is, I know the district is also a fan of this for many, many reasons, but one of them is it will make it easier for reporting to parents. You can standardize things like report cards. And so, when parents have different kids, different schools, different grades, they'll get consistent information about how their students are doing.
Any other questions?
We have a motion from Trustee McOwen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Trustee Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
New business?
Madam President, can I just answer the question for Mr. McGowan, Trustee McGowan? Pulse Electrical contract was $1.934 million.
Okay.
$1,934,000.
Originally?
Yes.
And do we know they've now done 36 change orders? Do we know roughly how much over they're at? I'm just curious.
Well, I'll get
Yeah,
I'll get it.
that you gotta add up and stuff. It takes a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and if there's no other questions, this meeting is adjourned.
Motion.
Second.
Trustee Saunders. Trustee Patterson.
Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you.